Rob on the left, Deane on the right. Which one is taller? Ah, you say, obviously Deane is taller. Wait a minute, there could be something else happening. Perhaps Rob is further away from you, the camera, your eye, than Deane. Let's check that out. I'll go backwards a little way, and wait a minute, what's happening here? Now Rob is taller than Deane. What about distance from the camera? Are we the same distance away? We can check that out by sliding across. Rob is partly hidden, so you know he's still further away. If I move back a little further, what about now? Now if I slide across this time, I'm partly hidden, and so you know that I'm further away. You're looking at a two-dimensional or flat picture on the television screen, but you're making judgments about depth or perspective. And there are several things that help you to make those judgments. One of them is size of an object. Generally, something that's smaller is further away in the picture. Also overlap. If something is partly hidden, it's further away. And if you'd seen the whole picture at the beginning, you would have known that Rob was further away because his feet are higher up in the picture. And there's another clue too about perspective. Do you know what that is? Well, if you look down a long roadway or footpath or river, you may notice that parallel lines converge or come together at the horizon. So converging lines gives you a clue about depth or perspective. And you're so used to this that you're not at all worried when you see railway lines coming together in a drawing. You know they're really parallel. And when you see a matchbox-sized house under a tree, you know it's not really small, it's just further away. It's higher up in the frame. And when you see a crowd of people in a drawing, some of them with arms and legs missing, you know they're not really missing. It's simply that overlap that we talked about that gives you a clue about distance from the camera or distance from the eye or distance from the observer. Now you might say, hasn't this been known forever? No, it hasn't. If you look at some paintings that have been made by ancient Egyptians, you notice that some people are smaller than others, but it has nothing to do with distance from the observer. It simply meant that the larger people were more important than the smaller ones. They didn't understand the things that we now do about perspective. If you look at some paintings done round about the 15th century, for example, this one by Van Eyck, you can see a very good understanding of depth. He's made the things in the distance through the window appear much, much smaller. And in fact, another painter of around the same period, Dürer, made a frame, a window frame, and he used this to draw things in perspective. He put a grid on the frame and he looked through that frame and made his drawings on a piece of paper that had the same sort of grid on it as the window. So he was able to depict exactly the kind of perspective that we see all the time and take for granted. That was his drawing frame. And of course with cameras today, it does it all for us. The camera depicts the sort of depth that was seen through Dürer's drawing frame. This famous photograph made by Cartier-Bresson shows the converging lines through an avenue of trees. It's a very beautiful photograph. He's exaggerated and used this converging line effect of perspective. And in another photograph, this one made by a photographer, Gary Steer, you can see a huge wedge-tailed eagle, much bigger than the cattle in the distance. You know as well as I do that the eagle is not really larger than the cattle, it's just that it happens to be much closer to the camera. And there's one more clue about depth in a two-dimensional picture. Do you know what that is? It's haze. If you look into the distance, sometimes the things furthest away are very hazy, as in this picture taken in Canberra. And so there are lots of things that tell us about depth in a flat picture. Size, overlap, the height in the frame, convergence of lines, and also haze. And I'll guarantee that in the next week you're going to see more converging lines than you thought possible as you ride down the street to school, as you go shopping.